I gotta be honest here. What we are seeing right now through 5 weeks of fantasy football, we're starting to see some more mirages rather than anything else. And this typically happens in the second quarter of a fantasy football season. And last week, I felt like the entire waiver wire was basically fool's gold. And honestly, I feel largely the exact same way again. Now, I will say that there are a couple names I like on the waiver wire that we will go over at the end, so make sure to stay and watch. But we're going to get into the guys on the waiver wire this week who are the biggest names and why I feel like a lot of them are fool's gold, guys. I just hit 5,000 subscribers last week thanks to you guys, and I need your help getting to 6,000. So go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. My voice is a little hoarse right now, but we're making it through everything right now. So the first name that we need to talk about on this list right here is going to be a name that is going to continue to get steam as the week goes on, and we get the update of this injured player potentially. The first name is Emari Demercado of the Arizona Cardinals, and he took over basically when James Conner went over yesterday. So James Conner, he went down with a knee injury yesterday, and we are filming this on Monday morning, and as of right now, there's no reports on what James Conner's status is going to be heading into this week. I read a report that he said he was feeling okay. That doesn't really mean much to me. Saquon Barkley said that weeks ago. Austin Eckler said that weeks ago. So that stuff from the players doesn't mean as much. We need to know what the doctors are saying and what the team is saying about this injury, and we don't have that information yet. But here's the thing. Emari came in, and he did handle every single running back touch without James Conner. So that's a good sign, right? And honestly, James Conner could be out for a while. As we alluded to, there's no question that James Conner could miss a couple weeks with a knee injury. So there's potential that he does handle more volume moving forward. Here's my problem. Arizona, they're simply just not a very good team. And let me discuss it more because I think Arizona's been a big shock to all of us this year. I think they've been probably one of the most shocking teams in the entire NFL. But here's what it is. When you get down to a certain part of the NFL season, bad teams aren't going to put up as much effort later on in the season if they just keep losing games. That's just the way that the NFL works. The NFL, you got a bunch of guys who are high ego guys, and they're going to play hard because Arizona has clearly tapped into some guys that are trying to work hard because every week they put out a good effort. That's not going to continue as they continue to lose more games. And that's my problem with Arizona running backs as a whole. If James Conner's in, you play James Conner. But I don't think there's enough upside for a backup running back here with Arizona, even if James Conner does miss. While I do acknowledge that I would put in about $6 or $7 bid on Emari this week. If James Conner misses, I could see myself putting in maybe 8 or 9. But that's my problem here. I don't think there's really enough long-term upside for you to go out and spend way too much on fab to get Emari. This is just not a situation here where I think upside is going to be aplenty. Our next guy right here, this is another guy that I just think we just keep running on a cycle with this type of guy. It's Justice Hill of the Baltimore Ravens this week. So, like I said, I think it's just I think it's like a bicycle ride. Like, you keep moving one foot in front of the other, and then every single week, it's either going to be Gus Edwards or it's going to be Justice Hill that gets the touchdown. And really, that's the only time either of those guys is fantasy relevant. That's the problem here, is because yes, Justin Hill's going to handle 5 to 12 carries per game. You're right? Like, that's a pretty easy thing to predict right here. And same thing with Gus Edwards. Sometimes they'll handle like 15 to 18 carries, and he's clearly the lead back that they prefer. But when they get to the goal line, there is a lot of Justice Hill. And honestly, 1 week, like I said, it's touchdown for Hill, and 1 week it's touchdown for Gus. This week, it just so happened to be a touchdown for Justice Hill. But we just got to be honest about this one, man. I mean, look at what he did this past week. 7 carries for 32 rushing yards. Like, it's just not enough. A touchdown is what saved his week right there. And he still only had 10.5 fantasy points. So when I'm looking at the waiver wire at this point, we're shooting for upside that we can easily drop. The problem with Justice Hill is he's the type of guy that will consistently get at least, like I said, 5 to 12 touches in an offense that is actually pretty good. But the problem is the upside is never there. You're never going to see Justice Hill breaking off 25-point games, right? That's the problem here. And so I just don't think that there's enough upside here for you to put in what's actually going to be worth getting Justice Hill, which will probably be a couple dollars on the waiver wire. Now, moving on to our next guy. This is actually someone that I really liked heading into the season. It's Kendric Miller of the New Orleans Saints. He's about 7.3% rostered right now. And he's obviously a rookie running back for the Saints out of TCU. So the thing I like about Kendric Miller is that recently, as far back as like 2 weeks ago even, I was saying Kendric Miller's got a big opportunity. That was when Jamal Williams was on IR, who he still is. But at that time, Alvin Kamara wasn't back yet either. So he had this window of 1 week that he could capitalize on and say, I deserve to be in this offense. Well, not only did he not capitalize, he absolutely flopped. Flopped in that week. So they had no attachment to him, and they had every right to put him on the bench without thinking twice because he wasn't effective. So Kendric missed his big shot. And while Williams is still out, Kamara's dominating this backfield, and that's exactly how it should be. Exactly. Kamara's looked pretty good this year. And honestly, I don't see a reason why Kendric Miller would get touches like this unless it was a 34-0 blowout win, which is exactly what they pulled off against the New England Patriots in Week 5. There's just no other way for me to say that Kendric Miller should be in this offense right now. And even when he did play in garbage time, it wasn't efficient. He was averaging basically 3 yards a carry. I just don't see this one right now, guys. The Saints aren't as dominant of an offense as they portrayed themselves to be against the New England defense that is absolutely reeling without many star players on that defensive front and also in the secondary as well. I just don't see the upside long-term for Kendric Miller. Now we're moving on to number 4 guy, and honestly, I'm not going to lie. This one is actually pretty intriguing, but I still do have problems with this one. It's Josh Downs of the Indianapolis Colts. So let me tell you why it intrigues me. So during the offseason, the early portion of the offseason, what I do on this channel is I go a lot into the dynasty rookie class that is coming up. So this past offseason, from about January all the way through May, it was all about dynasty. And we were going over every single rookie. And I made a dynasty rookie draft guide where I highlighted my wide receiver rookie prospect model. And Josh Downs, I was actually above consensus about where I was ranking him because he fit a lot of boxes that I checked. So it's not surprising for me to see him do well right now. Josh Downs is a guy I think is going to be effective, specifically in PPR leagues. I think I can understand someone putting in a $3 or $4 bid on a guy like Josh Downs. Because listen, you can see it on the screen. 6 receptions for 97 yards, and he had 12.7 fantasy points per game. In PPR, that's a pretty good week. Like, that's not a bad week at all. And he's 11% rostered, so he's out there. You know what I mean? He's not like he's just like only available in a couple leagues. We need to address this part though. Before I tell you guys to go out there and sign Josh Downs, we need to discuss this right here. So Anthony Richardson in that game hurt his shoulder, left early, and now it is reported that he is expected to miss at least a full month. So not only is that a huge problem, just for the upside of this offense, like the upside in the big plays are going to be capped. And also, who are you starting him over? That's my biggest question, is because Josh Downs is not a big play guy. And I noted that in the prospect model. And I said, this is the type of guy who is a very clean and crisp route runner with very good hands, very similarly to a Hunter Renfrow type. So when you put him out there and you try to get him going and try to get him vertical, he's just not much of a big play threat because he's not a burner. He's not a Marvin Mims type. He's not a Jordan Addison type. This guy is good getting the underneath routes. He's going to be able to score points in that manner, which is good in a full PPR league. So like I said, I could see this one if you're putting in a $3 to $4 bid on this guy. I can understand the shot you want to take here, but I honestly would not spend more than $5 on him. $5 is definitely my limit for Josh Downs because, as I said earlier, unless you are in a bind or if you are in a deeper league in full PPR, I can't see myself playing a guy like Josh Downs over anybody else because the upside, especially without Anthony Richardson, it's just not going to be there. Number 5, I've got him on here for the second straight week. It's Curtis Samuel of the Washington Commanders. I honestly just feel the exact same way I did last week. The thing with Curtis Samuel is, yes, he's got 2 straight weeks now of good fantasy performances. This week, he got a receiving touchdown. Last week, he got a rushing touchdown. And he had 7 targets in 6 receptions for 15.5 fantasy points. I understand that. That's all fine and good. But here's what we need to remember again. This is exactly what he does every single year. He's got a couple good games in a stretch run, I might add, but it never lasts. It never does. And they were also playing the Chicago Bears in this particular week, which By the way, they got stomped, but this is not a defense that's going to give you guys fits at any time of the year. So let's look at what the Washington Commanders have coming up. They've got the Falcons coming up, right? They've got the Giants coming up. So there's some good matchups here. The way I look at it is in 2 straight weeks now with Curtis Samuel doing this type of work, he's going to go for like a $10 bid. He's not worth $10. He's just not. He's not worth it because very similarly to Cole Kmet and what I said about him last week, Curtis Samuel is going to have a bad game, and then they'll get dropped. And you'll have another chance to pick him up if you want to, and he starts performing well again. It's just not worth it. We got to look at the long-term investment here. I still don't think Curtis Samuel is worth anything more than like $3 fab. And really the only guy I like, as we talked about earlier, I like KJ Osborne this week. KJ Osborne is a guy that I actually liked heading into the season before they drafted Jordan Addison. So obviously now that they drafted Jordan Addison is going to be the wide receiver 1 in this offense if Justin Jefferson misses time, which by the way, filming this again on Monday morning, there's a strong likelihood that Justin Jefferson could miss time. The hamstring injury, if you watch the play, didn't look good. It wasn't a very good hamstring injury. So there's a chance that he could miss a couple weeks here, and KJ Osborne immediately becomes the wide receiver 2 in this offense. And he got plenty of work yesterday as the wide receiver 2, and this team passes the ball a lot. So I do think that KJ Osborne is worth a $12 pickup, a $13 pickup. I think KJ Osborne is really the only one that I'm actually going to tell you guys to go after because I have enough confidence to tell my audience that he's going to be involved, especially while Justin Jefferson is out. So let me know who you are targeting on the waiver wire this week and what questions you need answered before week 6 fantasy football, and I will try to answer as many questions as possible. And if you want to see some buy low trade targets before week 6 fantasy football, click on this video right here.